Hey everybody, last April we put together an episode called Sky King, the story of Richard Russell, with our friend Caleb, co-host of Kill the Computer, formerly known as Western Kabuki, and released it to our Patreon. A lot of you got a lot out of it, so to kick off the new year, I wanted to just release it to everybody. I re-edited the whole thing, I also remastered the sound so it should be a little better balanced, and we are releasing this as our first episode of the new year. We'll be back to our regular programming next week with another review of yet another Rapture-themed movie. But until then, please enjoy, and thank you for listening. It's August 10, 2018, and the sun begins to set on yet another beautiful late summer day in Seattle. The Seattle Mariners are in Houston for Game 2 of what will end up being a clean 4-game sweep of the Astros.
The Seattle Seahawks had just kicked off their preseason game. At that time, the team was in flux. Paul Allen had just died. The Legion of Boom was officially gone. We had lost a substantial amount of players in free agency, and anxiety in Seattle was at an all-time high.
At the Mariners' home stadium, Safeco Field, excited concertgoers flow through the gates, buzzing in anticipation for the second of 2 sold-out Pearl Jam home show concerts.
Just 11 miles south of the ballpark, at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, a man begins taxiing down the runway in a Bombardier Q400 74-seat twin-turboprop passenger airplane. As a baggage handler for Horizon Air, a regional subsidiary of Alaska Airlines, this man has plenty of experience around these airplanes, but he is not a licensed pilot, and he is certainly not authorized to be flying this plane.
Air traffic control signals to the cabin. The pilot does not respond. At 7:33 p.m., the Q400 lifts off. 1 hour and 15 minutes later, it will crash into the woods of a barely populated nearby island, killing its sole occupant while turning him into an instant folk hero for some of the internet's most poisoned brains. This is the story of Richard Beebo Russell, the Sky King of Seattle.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds. I'm the Worst of All Possible Joshes.
And I'm the worst of all possible Brians. And you may notice that AJ is not here.
He's scouting out locations at a book depository in Texas. So this week, and you may have heard that from our intro, we're going to be doing something a little different.
Yeah.
Normally on our show, we just do case studies and we talk about a piece of media or a set of media by a creator or something like that. This time around, we are talking about an event that actually happened, how it was covered contemporaneously, and then how it was received.
Yeah.
Content advisory up top for this. We are going to be talking about suicide a lot.
Basically the whole episode, yeah.
And we are also going to be reading a whole bunch of posts by some of the most cracked racist weirdos you can possibly imagine. For some of you, that might be a perk. But I'm just throwing that out there. And to do this story, I should welcome our guest now because he actually pitched this story to me, and I'm so excited to dig into it. He is one of the co-hosts of the podcast Western Kabuki, which is the premier podcast about what's going on online. He's also a co-host of the NFL podcast 60 Minute Drill, and you may also know him from his unparalleled work in tormenting a pervert named Grums online. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
You told me that this is a story that you have long wanted to tell on a podcast. So why is that? What is it about this story that still resonates with you?
For context, this happened like in my backyard. And while I did not actually see Beebo, I did hear him. And the reason that I know I heard his plane is because all other air traffic was shut down at that time. I guess I just saw a lot of parallels in his life to mine. A little younger than me, but roughly the same age, same area, same, I guess, attitude towards work. Although maybe I think he acted it a little bit. It just felt really personal. I saw a lot of myself in him. And I remember talking to my dad that night and I was really upset by it. And he's like, I don't know. He asked me why is this so upsetting to you? And I couldn't really answer. And that kind of stuck with me over the years. I, at the time, had a podcast, but it was kind of like a proto-Western kabuki. We were doing the same kind of thing, just in a much more crude format, and it didn't really fit the narrative. What made it like more personal, what made it fit at least the context of the internet, is how I guess the extreme online right and some of the conspiracy QAnon types and whatnot tried to claim him as theirs, when I just thought that was a little bit perverse and incorrect way to look at it. And I don't think that the story has ever actually really been told in the right way, at least in hindsight.
Well, and you on Western Kabuki talk about the weird online right quite a bit. And Brian and I have both been on the show, so everybody should go check those episodes out. We'll have links in the show notes. How does this sort of reflect the kind of stuff, this story, reflect the kind of stuff that you talk about on your show?
On the, I guess, Western Kabuki, the most highbrow way to pitch that show is to say it's like a subculture analysis of different kinds of ways that people use the internet to fight loneliness or something. And this is actually kind of in that alley a little bit because, you were talking about, the 4chan types who took this guy and kind of lionized him, and the QAnon people that we'll talk about a little bit later that thought he was like a based operator or something like that. And there's just kind of like tentacles that go into bigger and deeper themes sociologically.
Well, we might as well dig into some of that sociological stuff right now, because just to give a little bit of background on Richard Russell and his whole deal, this guy is going to be the protagonist of our story. And there was a really good article in Rolling Stone by Tim Dickinson, which I think we're just going to quote here. Beebo Russell loved Jesus, craft beer, and cargo shorts. He was not the kind of man you'd peg for Grand Theft Airplane. Those who loved him describe him as compassionate, reliable, God-fearing, and goofy. He was raised in a military family with a reverence for fair play. A dedication from his family on his high school senior yearbook page cites the Bible, 2 Timothy 2 verse 5, which reads, "Whoever enters an athletic competition wins the prize only when playing by the rules."
Born in the Florida Keys and nicknamed Beebo as an infant, Russell was raised from boyhood in Wasilla, Alaska, outside of Anchorage. He attended the same high school as Sarah Palin, graduating in 2008, the year that Palin was picked for the GOP ticket. Russell was a three-sport star for the Wasilla Warriors, placing 5th in the state in discus and 4th in wrestling in the 215-pound category. He was a quiet leader, recording school athletes' personal bests on their weight belts. His is still in the school gymnasium.
Russell was a brick of a young man, square-shouldered and stout with long, powerful arms. On the football field, he barreled for 327 yards, scoring 6 touchdowns as a standout senior fullback. He embraced contact, and according to friends and family, got his bell rung with some frequency. At the time, concern about football brain injury had yet to enter the mainstream. Alaska would not implement a concussion protocol for school sports until 2011. With
a shock of half-groomed brown hair and a face full of freckles, Russell was funny, extroverted, a handful, relatives would later say. They all had Beebo stories. As a high schooler, he hosted booze-free bonfires for friends. On his MySpace page, misbehaving looked like shotgunning cans of Mountain Dew with his bros. In one senior yearbook photo, he is posed atop a boulder, legs out to the side, his long arms holding up his blocky frame. His head is thrown back with a coy expression as if the prompt had been, "Give me a sexy walrus." If only we had AJ right now. "You bring such humor and unpredictability to our lives," reads his family's yearbook dedication. "As you write the rest of this story, always remember you are loved." So from this profile, I mean, we get the sense of a guy who seems pretty, like, normal. Like, just a normal kind of, like, all-American guy, right?
Yeah, there's some very Baptist-coded behavior in there.
Yeah.
You know, the bonfires where they shotgun Mountain Dew, that's a little close to home. And, like, yeah, growing up in I don't really know much about the Keys. I don't know that much about Wasilla, Alaska, but, these are kind of redneck places. Mm-hmm. You know, they're pretty country. Wasilla's close-ish to Anchorage, but it's a very, very small town, and it produced the Palins, and I think you can kind of infer the rest from that.
And he moved on from Alaska to Oregon, where he was at a university, but he didn't get a lot of playing time in college. And then he moved on to the town of Coos Bay, Oregon. And that was where he joined Campus Crusade for Christ. Now, Brian, I know you know about Campus Crusade for Christ, but Caleb, do you?
Not my wheelhouse, not my milieu, so to speak.
Okay. It's our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's an old organization that got a lot of juice during the Jesus movement of the 70s. And they also produced The Jesus Film. If you've ever heard of The Jesus Film.
I've heard of it, but
they made that.
Sadly, it's still on my queue.
Apparently, they're just called Crew now, CRU, which is insane.
That is quite a rebrand.
Yeah, the thing that you really ought to know about Campus Crusade for Christ, it's kind of like a number of other organizations such as Young Life, where the whole point is let's get young people to be more Christian. You know, really.
It's a social group for college students. Josh and I went to a Christian college, so we didn't have Campus Crusade for Christ. It's kind of precluded.
The whole campus was a crusade for Christ, baby.
Although the Gideons would come by and hand us Bibles for some reason.
But he was basically a high school mentor at Campus Crusade. And it was also while he was doing Campus Crusade that he met a woman named Hannah. And they got married in 2012 and moved to Sumner, which is a Seattle suburb east of Tacoma. Now, I don't know anything about Sumner, but this is obviously your area of subject matter expertise, Caleb. Tell me about Sumner.
Okay. Everybody assumes a lot about the Pacific Northwest, that it's some sort of like a liberal utopia. Okay. Once you get outside of like the Seattle-Tacoma metro area, it gets very Hitlerian very fast. I think that this is like kind of on the cusp of it. I grew up in a town quite like this, where it's like you're at a confluence of ideology. Sumner is a very, very kind of conservative. So you get all the shitheads that say they live in Seattle and are too scared to walk down the street that say that, but they actually live in places like Sumner. It's really small. It's out of the way. There is nothing going on there. Some people like that. It's quaint, but there are like zero job opportunities. And because of that, I think the station of it and everything, crimes, not violent crimes, but like crimes of poverty are a lot higher there. Car break-ins, thefts, things of that nature are actually twice as high as the state average. At least, so these are stats from around, these are 2018 or 19 stats. I tried everything that I pulled. I try to keep from this time, but it's also at this time was 3 times the national average. And part of that reason too was rents in this area were just exploding. I think we were like Pierce County was like the hottest real estate market out of, 2 years of financial quarters. It was something like 6 times or something like that. The rents were just going through the roof. The average rent for a place to live is like $2,000, which that comes into play later when we talk about what he was making. So tough place to be in some ways, not a fun place to live.
Well, and a big thing about when he was living in Oregon with his wife was they had started a bakery. He co-owned it, but he was kind of learning how to bake from her. And they were both kind of far away from all of their family.
Yeah.
So they moved to a place that would be closer. Of course, for him, closer meant Alaska. And there's no good compromise between like Seattle and Wasilla, Alaska, right?
Unless you want to move to like, I don't know, fucking somewhere up in the Yukon or something like that.
When he ends up working then for the airline, that gives him the ability to get some flights, right? You can get, as an employee, you can fly for free or for cheap. And that is a great lifeline for him to be able to go back to Alaska and visit family.
Specifically to Alaska, Horizon, yeah.
Horizon is a regional subsidiary of Alaska Airlines, which is one of the United States' really big airlines, right? And so if you're doing one of those shorter flights, one of the ones to get you from sort of one of the spokes in the system back to Seattle, you're probably going to be on Horizon Air. Whereas if you're flying from Seattle to, I don't know, Detroit, you're probably going to be on a flight with Alaska. And so Horizon Air serves a number of smaller markets, and they need baggage handlers in Seattle. He signs up, he gets the job, and as part of an online communications class that he ended up taking at Washington State University, he asked his coworkers whether or not they enjoyed their jobs and edited the answers together.
Do you like working as a ground service agent? Why or why not?
I do and I don't. The work here is very easy. It's not that hard. One of the good things about working here is there's good people that work here, and one of the bad things about working here is there's really bad people that work here that are not good workers.
I enjoy that it's a physical job with a lot of different opportunity, a lot of different tasks you can partake in. I enjoy the flexibility of the schedule and the flight benefits. I do not enjoy management.
So, about that management, I've got an article here from August 19, 2018 from the Seattle Times, and I'm just going to quote from it. Brandon Brown, who worked as a Horizon ground service agent for 6 years before leaving in 2017, said that he used to talk with Russell about what trips they would take. Russell, he said, was always friendly and was always reading in what little downtime they had. Every time he'd come into work, he'd always have a stack full of books, said Brown, who didn't recall the titles. He was the nicest guy. Sometimes you can work at places and some of the people there, you'd think something was a little off with them. I never in a million years thought that about him. I just don't understand.
SeaTac was the first city in the country to raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour, paving the way for much larger cities like Seattle, San Francisco, and New York. But SeaTac's law did not cover everybody. Specifically, it doesn't apply to airline employees like Horizon ground service agents.
Brown said the starting wage for ground service agents was about $12 an hour. It didn't sit well with people, Brown said. You had people up working in the restaurants. Everybody else at the airport made $15.
And of course, this is a very interesting example of how the small differences in these wages, of course, for the workers to be fighting amongst themselves, that is exactly what the corporations want, right?
And there was a monthly bonus structure to this job where you'd get like anywhere from 50 to 200, depending on what kind of goals were being hit. And then they started fucking with that bonus structure too, right? Because companies forget why they implement a bullshit thing like a monthly bonus system, which is to keep people in line and keep them calm and keep them working harder so that they can get more of that
Something
money
to aspire to.
Yeah.
But then they're like, yeah, but that's really expensive. So let's take that fucking away.
Just a quick couple things to contextualize the region. $12 an hour. Remember what I said about what the average rent was there? Even if 100% of his money went to rent, he wouldn't probably be able to afford a house on his own, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Additionally, the commute, depending on what time of day he left, could be an hour or more to make $12 an hour.
And that's driving too. That's not necessarily, taking public transit from there, right?
Yeah. There's no Sumner doesn't have like a line to the airport or anything like that.
A Sumner land ferry.
Yeah.
Another co-worker of Beebo's, Todd Bunker, wrote the following in an August 17 opinion piece for The Stranger.
When a lot of your supervisory staff and coworkers are ex-military, you begin to realize what being expendable is. I believe Beebo was acutely aware of that because we all were. It's the kind of dehumanizing situation that could lead to what happened on August 10th.
If the environment itself isn't enough to persuade you that you are nothing more than a cog to the upper management and shareholders, there are plenty of other, even more exasperating reminders. You are making around $3 less per hour than anybody else at SeaTac, including other airline employees, restaurant employees, car rental employees, bus drivers, etc. Although there are benefits. Health insurance and stock options might be nice, but they don't pay the rent. However, a vast majority of ground service agents are men under age 30, so insurance and stock options mean nothing to them. They become empty gestures from a management who knows you'll never use them and thus cost the company little. But that's only one part of the picture. To be clear, the people I worked with were dedicated, hardworking, safety-conscious, attempting to be loyal, all of the things that are supposed to get you ahead in America. But the workers on the ground and our immediate supervisors could barely keep our heads above water. As a subsidiary of Alaska Air Group, Horizon Air is the proverbial red-headed stepchild. It is glaringly clear to everyone who works there that cost-cutting by the executive teams in order to keep the shareholders happy is the main goal. And Horizon is the first stop on that belt-tightening train.
We, the lowest level employees, knew that when the record quarterly earnings report came out, there wasn't going to be any trickle down. When I worked for Horizon, we were cursing our low-wage fate in the break room, while Alaska was spending another $2.5 billion acquiring Virgin America, got to keep up with Delta, and then investing another $2.5 billion upgrading their turboprop airplane fleet to jets. Acquisitions and sexy new jets play well at the stockholder meeting. Increased labor costs do not. Now, Caleb, this was an article that you had sent along. Do you know anybody who works in the industry or anything like that? Or was it just something you found? Okay, cool. Say more.
Yeah, I actually, I applied to this exact job.
Really?
Oh.
To Horizon at one point, and I had interviewed for it and everything. I ended up, I don't remember what the circumstances were. I think it was because I had a second job that I liked more, even though it was part-time. It just didn't fit. But I got the hookup for this job from a friend that worked there and did this. This was a few years before this, but yeah, I do know. And this article, there's a part of it that we aren't pulling from that talks about like how your shit just gets stolen all the time.
Yeah, they don't have enough lockers for everyone, so
Yeah,
you just
they don't
have to leave your stuff behind.
Just gets stolen. Your lunch gets stolen.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. Like, that's such a nominal expense.
And yeah, there's no coworkers aren't necessarily anything to each other because they don't know each other because people just leave the job very quickly.
Exactly.
Right. Another part of the article says that there's always a job listing for Horizon.
I'm sure it's the same way to this day. If you're down and out in this area and you really need a job, you could probably, get this same job now because the turnover is just atrocious.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious, so I went on Indeed.com and looked up jobs, right? And I did indeed find a current job listing for ramp and customer service agent for Horizon Air in Oregon.
Hell yeah, dude.
And it was $16 an hour.
Yeah, dude.
All these years later. Just in general, it should be noted that the air travel industry is one of those things where it's either feast or famine. You're either making good money or you're making no money. Per the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median annual wage for baggage handlers in 2023 was $37,660. Median hourly wage there, $18.10. Now, this is compared to the national overall median annual wage for all jobs, which is $49,500, median hourly wage $23.80. So this is not a median level job. They are very much underpaying these people. And again, that median hourly wage just at the national level for baggage handlers, $18. Horizon is underpaying even by those standards at $16 an hour. And just to sort of rant a little bit more about this, right? Like, good paying jobs in the air travel industry do exist. Pilots, co-pilots, flight engineers, obviously that's the big one. And in that same Bureau of Labor Statistics data, we see the annualized wage median for those jobs as $219,140. That's good money. But the thing is, qualifying for those jobs takes years of training and experience. And even flight attendants, who definitely make more than these baggage handlers do, around $75,000 a year industry-wide, they similarly have to put in their time to climb the ranks because generally speaking, those salaries are based on how long you've been doing the job.
And also, flight attendants do not get paid until the doors on the plane close.
That's right.
Even though they are doing their jobs before that point.
And if it weren't for the unions, which all of the airlines except for Delta have unionized flight attendants, there's no way they'd even be making that much money, Oh,
yeah.
So that grunt work, all of the grunt work that it takes to get to the point where you're making a decent wage, that is usually happening not at the big national airlines, but at the regional airlines, places like Horizon. Because generally speaking, these regional airlines are not subject to the same lucrative labor contracts as the major national airlines, nor is there price competition to, to bump those wages up. So in other words, everyone from the flight deck to the tarmac is getting paid dramatically less than their equivalents at Alaska, American, United, and Delta for the exact same labor.
Yeah, that's another really cool thing, that you can work for Alaska Air, but it's not the same as working for Alaska Air.
Right.
Because you're at a subsidiary.
Even the flight attendants, their salaries are what they are, but like, a lot of them sleep in like RVs in like their home, I guess, port cities or whatever, and they stay there and they fly around, so they just never actually, they get to travel a lot and it's very cool, but they don't really get to see their family a whole lot because they're constantly on the go, and not an easy job.
No. And I mean, think about all the things that you have to deal with doing that job. All of the fucking bullshit, Yeah,
I mean, this is, especially after 9/11, it's a very, very high stakes job.
Right.
Even before 9/11, right, we had hijackings left and right throughout the 70s and everything. It's a fucking plane. It could crash and everyone die. You have to be aware of that. And you have to be, if you're in those dangerous circumstances, you're the person that everyone has to depend upon. But that's true of, even the people on the ground. They're not necessarily facing that same level of danger, although there's still quite a bit of danger. You're around planes with big turbines and everything. But you are responsible for a lot of very important stuff. If you know people who use wheelchairs, they don't like to fly because those wheelchairs get destroyed a lot. Well, obviously it's because you have weird hiring situations and weird working practices down on the ramp. So no one's going to care about your luggage. They are just going to throw it in there.
Yeah, I mean, they're not paid enough to give a shit about it.
No. And they have to have all this clearance. They have to have all this scrutiny. You have to go through security every single time you go to work. That shit sucks. For $13 an hour?
So, back to August 10, 2018. It's 2:36 p.m. Beebo Russell clocks into work at SeaTac. He's wearing a t-shirt that says "The sky's no limit" on it. And it's pretty clear that he has a plan in mind because at 7:15 p.m., he gets onto the runway and gets into one of those tugs, the tugs that pull the airplanes out, and tows that Q400 out onto the runway. He releases the plane, jumps into it, and at 7:33 p.m., Beebo takes off toward Mount Rainier, and all air traffic out of SeaTac is immediately grounded.
And this starts to make its little ripples around. At first, you have like local and aviation reporters talking about some sort of anomalous event happening at Seattle-Tacoma.
So at this point, my timeline of events was I worked for a construction company. And one of the things that I would do is feasibility studies where you go out and look at a piece of land and make sure that it's like, safe and you can build a home there and you don't have to cut down anything endangered, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of times I would just like, oh yeah, I got to go do this. And then I would just leave. So I went to go watch the replay of because it had happened the Seahawks had played the day before, but it's a preseason game. Nobody actually cares about it live. So I went to go to a bar to watch it, told my girlfriend to get off. And I got a couple texts from people. And then the bartender was like, oh, do you see this? Some guy stole a plane. That's kind of funny. Ha 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 ha, or whatever. It's like, oh, that's silly. Well, and then you start seeing it become a bigger and a bigger thing.
So you were just at the bar watching this stuff come in?
Yeah. So like, if you look at the flight, like whatever his trip where he flew, he flew over me directly over where I was at like twice.
Oh, wow.
I didn't see him, but I did hear it. Somebody outside said that they'd seen him. I didn't really care that much. It was just kind of a silly thing. My thing was I was kind of watching the replay of the game, having a beer, and I was getting a pizza to take home to my girlfriend. And that's what we were going to do for dinner that night. So I wasn't really that invested in it, but yeah.
You were not avidly following this story as it developed. You were more focused on the Seahawks.
Well, eventually I did, because as time went on, it's like this became a thing and the game goes off. They turn on the news and my girlfriend ended up meeting me at the bar. And we were kind of watching it like just what's going to happen,
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm at home in my apartment in New York between jobs, about to start like a new really stupid immersive theater thing. And I am transfixed by all of this. One of the things is that Seattle being this hub for aeronautics in the first place, because you have like Boeing and whatever, a lot of aviation reporters are based out of Seattle. So they're also national or Canadian reporters. And so they're sharing stuff, and then their national reporter connections are sharing, on Twitter, back when Twitter was like a place that you went to for stuff besides skull measurements. and so it immediately starts coming to me, and I start seeing all these videos and everything. And there's this big question happening at the time of like, okay, what is this? So around midnight that night, someone actually posted the full feed that they had captured from some source that I ended up starting to clip from. There was a reporter, his name is Jimmy Thompson. He's Canadian. He's not on Twitter anymore. So I couldn't find any of his old posts about it, but he was trying to get all the clips of Richard Russell's radio chatter. And I actually grabbed a couple of the messages that had been missed previously, which means that it's very possible that some of the videos that circulate today are using clips that I took from that feed.
You really were all in on this.
I really was. I don't even remember. I mean, I remembered that I was kind of obsessed with it as it was happening, but no, it was like, it was for a while afterwards.
He did and I should remember this. I don't. At what point did he do the barrel roll?
It was right at the end.
Yeah, 8:43. Yeah.
There are a lot of compilation videos out now, fan cams basically. And even those miss a lot of the really crazy footage that I remember seeing that night of people like on their back porches with this plane very visible and very fucking loud and very fucking low flying overhead.
And we'll get to talking a little bit about some of the response to this, the tributes and things like that a bit later on in the episode. What we're going to do right now is we're going to trace what happened in this flight, and I've pulled some clips from that air traffic control chatter. And I got to say, I also ended up being pretty transfixed by this, just going through it again. And this, 7 years later, right? 7:48 p.m. Again, this is about 15 minutes after lifting off. Beebo comes back around Mount Rainier. He's been off radar up until now, but he now has circled Mount Rainier's summit, shows back up on radar. NORAD at this point has been put on alert just in case this guy is like a terrorist or whatever, because they don't really know what his deal is at this point.
Yeah, for a while he's not on the radio. Like the whole time he's taking off, he probably doesn't even have the headset on.
Right.
And for part of it, he's also out of range.
But once he gets back in radar range and gets on the radio, it's very clear that this is just a guy. It turns out that he's puked all over himself. And
relatable.
Absolutely. And this is what one of those first back and forths sounds like.
Just flying the plane around, you seem comfortable with that?
Oh, hell yeah, it's a blast, man. I played video games before, so I know what I'm doing a little bit.
Dudes rock.
Okay, and you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
Nah, everything's peachy clean. Just did a little circle around Rainier. It's beautiful. I think I got some gas to go check out the Olympics. And, yeah.
It should be noted, it's sort of like 9/11 where, 9/11 was on a very, very clear day. You could get all of this footage from so far away, and that's not necessarily unusual for New York, but it is kind of unusual for the Seattle area to have a sky this fucking clear.
I cannot see the sky right now. Granted, it is not August, but still, we got a show that day.
Yeah.
And Caleb, you were mentioning dudes who rock. I mean, Beebo, I think, comes across as a dude who largely rocks. I'm curious how listening to some of this hits you.
It's really hard to describe. It's like the same thing of like when I was talking to my dad about this when this first happened. It's like I get a little bit emotional because like he's just a guy. I think he just wanted to feel something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's this combination. I mean, he's very nice. He doesn't say swear words. He says sort of like close to swear words, but he's also like joking. Like it's still actually unclear if he learned from Microsoft Flight Simulator, according to the FBI documents. They don't ever say if they actually found that.
Yeah, that was the rumor, but we never really got a good confirmation of that.
I mean, the ways that people can learn how to start a plane, he knew a little bit because he had been training to taxi planes and to pull them. But also you can go on YouTube and just see people start their planes. People take video of that. And other people in other articles have said like that's actually a very useful recruiting tool because people are interested in planes, they know a thing or two, and they're like, I bet I could do this. And, then they get training. But, he says it in such a jokey way, and he has these other kinds of jokes that he makes throughout the whole.
It's fascinating to me, I guess, to expound upon my earlier answer is like this, we don't know why he did it. And we're going to talk about all that later, of course. But like, to me, it seems like somebody finally caved into a long-standing intrusive thought that they've had.
Yeah.
And you get to hear like a real fucking person, how they would sound.
Yeah.
Like living through acting that intrusive thought out. And it's like very human. I don't know, it's just bizarre, but like funny and sweet and a little tragic, obviously. I don't know. It's just a confluence of different emotions.
Yeah.
For me.
Radio chatter is usually so flat and so technical. It's like adjust your bearing and degrees and all of this stuff. And this, if you didn't know that this was a news story and someone played this for you, you'd think this was a joke.
Yeah.
Right. Just a guy who's talking like a guy joyriding in a fucking commercial airplane.
And it's also the thing that hits me too is that like it seems like he's saying this stuff like making these jokes and things. It's as much to calm himself down as anything else, because there are a few times where you can hear the panic come through too.
I mean, he threw up all over himself. Yeah.
Yeah. The air is thin. Like his cabin his cockpit isn't pressurized properly because he doesn't know how to use those systems. The whole reason he went up is because he wants to die. And he knows that doing this is going to kill him. He's doing maneuvers that this plane has never done before or since because he wants it to go out of control and lose it. But also when you're in the middle of a full hour and a half long suicide attempt, you're going to have those moments of, I should not be doing this. I should not have jumped.
At 8:08 p.m., this is 35 minutes after liftoff, NORAD authorizes an interception of the aircraft. Not a shoot down or anything like that, but an interception. So 2 F-15Cs, which are flying out of Portland International Airport, get scrambled. These are from the Army Air Force National Guard's 142nd Fighter Wing. The airplanes approach, and once again, air traffic control tries to persuade Beebo to land.
There is the runway just off your right side in about a mile. Do you see that? That's McCord Field.
Oh man, those guys will rough me up if I tried landing there. I think I might mess something up there too. I wouldn't want to do that. Hopefully, they probably got anti-aircraft.
No, they don't have any of that stuff. We're just trying to find a place for you to land safely.
Yeah, not quite ready to bring it down just yet, but holy smokes, I gotta stop looking at the fuel because it's going down quick.
Okay, Rich, if you could you start a left-hand turn, and we'll take you down to the southeast, please.
This is probably like jail time for life, huh? I mean, I would hope it is for a guy like me.
Well, Rich, we're not going to worry or think about that, but could you start a left-hand turn, please?
I am so impressed with the air traffic controller throughout this entire thing, because not only is he maintaining presence of mind and sort of providing a, I would say, stable baseline in communicating with Beebo, he's also controlling air traffic for the whole region at the same time. You can hear that between these, he's also doing call-outs to and from airplanes, because again, all air traffic up out of Seattle has been grounded, but there are still planes making landings.
And they're diverting them. Most of them are diverting. I think a couple are landing at SeaTac, but they're generally like, okay, we have to get this plane over to this airport over here and then get this one this way. And he has to talk also like a hostage negotiator, right?
Right.
It's okay. No one's going to beat you up. No one's going to shoot you down. We're not going to talk about that right now. We just want you to make a left turn.
I kind of thought that was, I don't know, it was just funny. Those guys he's worried about getting beaten up. I don't know.
Yeah,
dude.
like all the Air Force guys are going to run out and just start wailing on him.
They'd have to get out of their chairs first. What with being members of the U.S. Chair Force.
If McCord is a naval base, I'm not sorry.
It's like a joint, McCord is the Air Force, is a JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McCord. Okay. So it's an Army and Air Force base. There's also, this is another thing that'll come into play later when we talk about the conspiracy angles, is there's, what people don't know this, but like there are military bases all fucking over this area, and there are a lot of naval ones, but this one was Army Air Force.
Another thing that happens during this portion of the flight is that, well, I'll just play the clip.
Heading 250, that's 2021.
Minimum wage. We'll chalk it up to that. Maybe that'll grease the gears a little bit with the higher up. Maybe,
And this is an example of how you can hear the way that he sort of just cuts in between the chatter of other pilots. But we have a mention here of minimum wage. And this is something that people would really end up seizing on when they were looking for, like, why did he do it? The fact that he mentioned minimum wage being like, was he just so desperate?
This is one of the two clips that people seize on. People see kinship with this because people have all had bad jobs that underpay them. Having a poorly paid job and being stuck in it is such a powerless feeling. Whereas taking a plane and flying it when you don't even know what the hell you're doing, he didn't even know to take the brakes off of the tires when he was taking off. Like that's a freeing feeling. You're literally going up into the sky,
I think the minimum wage comment, should be the thing that people take away from the most. Anybody who's just ever worked at a really, really crappy job, who's just not making it, and they just fantasize about doing something about it, I think can. And it's interesting to me that he says this, and he says the clip that I think we're about to play next. But the thing that like so much of the internet really seized on, and like why I wanted to talk about this, is there's another clip where he says like, I'm just a dumb white guy or whatever.
At this point, they're going back and forth about jail time and that stuff. And then he's like, well, but like, it is pretty impressive what I did here.
Right.
And this is where the conversation turns.
No, you can do that with these things. So what would, if you were to do it, how would you do it?
Well, I'd try to figure out how to use the autopilot first.
On Roger, taxi spot 88 via Bravo, connect ramp.
88 and over ramp at 2057. Not concentrate so much on flying the airplane.
Hey, you think if I land this successfully, Alaska will give me a job as a pilot?
I think they would give you a job of doing anything if you could pull this off.
Yeah, right. Nah, I'm a white guy.
So that's kind of the clip I think that some of the worst people on the internet really latched onto. They don't care about the material aspect of it, the finances, where he says explicitly, at least he alludes to it, minimum wage or whatever. He kind of makes a crack. Oh, I'm just a white guy. And that was, I would say, of the people who continued to care about the story after it ended, that's all they think about is that part.
And it's a little hard to tell how sincerely he believes that comment. It doesn't come from nowhere. Obviously, no, they won't hire him because he stole the plane. So there is that jokey element to it, but people hear that, and that's already, if it is a joke, it's a joke playing on stuff that people already say. Oh, I can't get a job doing that because I'm white. Yeah. They're not hiring white people anymore.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think it's, I'm not saying that that's not what he meant, but I guess I would say it's just a bit more debatable, because when I heard that live, I just took it in maybe it's just more about me, but I just took that in a different direction of him just kind of making a self-deprecating joke or something.
Yeah,
that also makes sense. Yeah.
That's the thing is, you can speculate on it, obviously, but there is definitely this feeling of, his whole thing throughout this entire thing is I'm just kind of a typical doofus,
Yeah. I'm a guy who wears cargo shorts everywhere I go. It was in his obituary that he always wore cargo shorts. And that he'd carry pastries and things in his cargo short pockets.
Another dude's rock moment, by the way.
Absolutely. And again, as flight control continues to try to persuade him to land, he has other ideas in mind.
If you wanted to land, probably the best bet is that runway just ahead and to your left. Again, that's McCord Field. If you wanted to try, that might be the best way to set up and see if you can land there. Or just like the pilot suggests, another option would be over Puget Sound into the water.
Dang, did you talk to McCord yet? Because I don't think I'd be happy with you telling me I could land like that, because I could mess some stuff up.
Well, Rich, I already talked to him, and just like me, what we want to see is you not get hurt or anybody else get hurt. So like I said, if you want to try to land, that's probably the best place to go.
Hey, I want the coordinates of that orca with the mama orca with the baby. I want to go see that guy.
That, for context, was a news story that was going on. The people out here really take Orca Watch seriously. There's various pods or whatever, and one of them had just given birth, and there was, some news about that. That didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, this specifically was an orca whose baby had died, and she was carrying it around the water. And was spotted multiple times. The main reason why they're trying to get him to land at McCord is that it was basically, this is a very hard plane to land even for experienced pilots. It's designed to do really quick takeoffs and really quick landings on short runways. And they knew that the chances of him being able to take this thing down safely on his own was near zero, and that he very clearly didn't have much of an intent to take it down safely either. And so they're just trying to divert him to we don't want you to land at a fucking airport with a lot of people around and a lot of stuff, but a military base, we can kind of clear everyone away. It's a little bit emptier. You might destroy a hangar or two or something like that. They're even trying to get him to do a water landing later on.
I mean, I know that he was aware of all of this, and you can tell because of the stuff that he says next.
I got a lot of people that care about me, and it's going to disappoint them to hear that I did this. I would like to apologize to each and every one of them. Just a broken guy. Got a few screws loose, I guess. Never really knew it until now.
And this is where we have both the levels of confidentiality with the FBI investigation, with all the other agencies that look into this sort of thing, and with Beebo's family. They have maintained a pretty strict cone of silence on all of this stuff. They've talked to authorities, but they don't talk to the media. He had a brother, stepbrother back in Wasilla, like talk once, like right after it happened, and was like, yeah, I heard him making jokes. That's my brother. But for the most part, anything that's actually about his life, we don't really know. The FBI report redacts most of the information involving his family. We know that there was some kind of intervention that happened about a week before, and that he seemed to be feeling a little bit better afterwards, but he was drinking a bit. What I've seen from a little bit more of the report does seem to imply that maybe he's in the middle of a manic episode, and maybe he had never had one of those before, and his family didn't quite know how to deal with something like that. And that he was having some kind of financial problems, which is not a surprise considering where he lived and the job that he had.
Caleb, I know you had mentioned, was there anything that you had wanted to say about the whole, like, guess I just got a few screws loose and that whole thing? Because I think that's the clip that sticks with me the most out of all of this.
Same. Yeah. I mean, I can just tell you, all these years later, that still made me tear up a little bit. I guess I just see so much of myself in that, you know, and it's just very relatable of everything from also experiencing the rent crisis of Pierce County during this time. Everything was slipping further and further and quickly away of just like home ownership, the idea of it. And I even had a much better job than he did, and I was still feeling it, you know, down to the like mental health and maybe you're drinking too much or whatever. It's like everything all about that just was like, I don't know, when I told you guys earlier in this episode that like my dad asked me why it hit me so hard, because there's like no difference between me and him.
So at 8:30 p.m., Beebo glimpses the Olympic Mountains.
Man, have you been to the Olympics? These guys are gorgeous. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I have been out there. It's always a nice drive.
On 119.2.
But I think I might have a beer.
Yeah, I bet you do. I haven't done much hiking over there, and but if you could start a left turn and turn back towards the east. I know you're getting a good view there, but if you go too much further in that direction, I won't be able to hear you anymore.
All right. Hey, pilot guy, can this thing do a backflip, you think?
So this was a clip that I grabbed back in 2018. Everything is very different now. A lot of years have passed. I think one of the things that drew me in is also just that air traffic controller and the empathy that he brings to this situation. And of course, that sort of trademark calm that an ATC has to have.
He really just does the perfect amount of just like a human interaction.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, yeah, dude, I'm listening to you.
Situation calm.
It's a great place to hike. It's a great place to drive.
Now, how about we execute that left turn? Like, let's, know, always bringing it back to the task at hand.
You know, calls him Rich instead of Richard.
Mm-hmm. Pretty soon after this, we get a few more words from Beebo. And Brian, this is the one that you said sticks with you the most, right?
Yeah, this now, I didn't remember this part of it, especially because of the way that he's mythologized now and everything. And so coming back and listening to the whole thing again, I was like, well, this is it. This is the whole story. Because he's up there, he's looking at the mountains. He's executed this thing that he has apparently spent quite a bit of time planning. Because, again, he was able to pilot a plane by himself as a non-pilot. And yet, this moment that everyone celebrates, that everyone idolizes now, comes out through his own mouth like this.
Just kind of lightheaded, dizzy. Man, and, you know, the sights went by so fast, too. I was thinking, like, I'm going to have this moment of serenity, you know, I'll be able to take in all the sights. There's a lot of pretty stuff, but I think they're prettier in a different context.
If it's not super clear to you listening, he said, I thought I'd have this moment of serenity. And it's pretty stuff, but maybe it's prettier in a different context. One of the things that he's doing this whole flight is he's always checking in on that fuel gauge because he's driving this thing fucking fast.
Yeah.
You know,
fast and low.
Fast and low, and he's doing all these maneuvers that, you know, it's going to take a lot of energy to bank that turn and do what else. And he just keeps looking at it, and he's like, well, it's the sands in the hourglass falling down, and he's approaching the end of it all, which is what he set out to do in the first place. And it didn't feel the way that he was really, really hoping it would feel.
Which is
kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
it's awful. I mean, and it's so, I know I've talked about it on this show a few times before at this point, but you know, a few years ago, coming up on now the 3-year anniversary of it, I lost my sister to suicide. And I have to think that there was a fleeting moment there where she too thought maybe it would be worth it to keep going. Or maybe it was because she wasn't able to have that moment that she went through with it. I don't know. But this is where I get so stuck on this idea of like, why can't you see what that other context would be and have the opportunity to enjoy it and be there and live in that way, you know, rather than just giving yourself over to self-annihilation. It hurts. It really, really hurts.
The mythology, it's just so misunderstood, the entire story, which is, again, why I wanted to do this to begin with. Like, the mythology behind this is he didn't go up there to die. He went up there to live.
God, if I have to read one more fucking comment that says that, every
reply, every video, have some
Did you
fucking
actually,
guy.
like, listen? Because you're just projecting your own feelings onto them. You're just like, fine, we all do it. I get that feeling. But, like, wait a minute. That's not what actually happened, right?
I mean, I think it's true. I think he did go up there to live, but then he found out that wasn't really what happened.
It wasn't actually living. Like he thought he would find life, and then realized that there was more life, but he'd already traded that possibility away.
He didn't get this serendipitous moment. All he kind of found up there was like shame.
Yeah.
Like, I let my family down.
I think that's a really important point, actually, the shame. You constantly hear him talking about how, like, man, I feel so bad for like all of the people who are having to deal with my bullshit right now.
He apologizes to the guy in the tower, and he's like, I really hope this doesn't ruin your day. Yeah. And I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
You know?
And then some. I'm sure he
had to take a lot of time off of work, right? They're very strict about, you know, levels of stress in that job for this reason.
You think about like all of the people who, I mean, it's a slightly different thing, but like train drivers, for instance, who run into and kill somebody on the tracks. This is probably not a dissimilar feeling where, you know, it's not, you don't have that death on your hands, but it feels like you do.
Yeah. If it fucks us up this badly, listening to a recording, you know, now listening to it 8 years later, 7 years later, whatever, like, imagine you actually being on the call with that person and having to say the right things and getting what ended up being probably the best outcome that he could have ever gotten, you know, which still ends with one person dying.
Yeah. I mean, like, to, I guess, his credit, Beebo, he quite clearly does not want to hurt anybody.
Yes.
But you get the sense that he realizes that he's hurting a lot of people.
At the same time, though, he still wants to, I mean, again, we've talked about this a little earlier, right? These maneuvers, it's like, well, I was able to do that. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this. And he does a barrel roll and he pulls it off. You know, he ends up just almost skimming the surface of the Puget Sound itself. You know, I think he clears it by about 10 feet.
It doesn't look the way that it does in Star Fox. That's for sure. Because as he's turning over, the plane just basically falls straight down to the water. And then there's some chatter from the fighter jets,
right,
where they're like, "Oh my God, he did it."
Particular Rockport 1, COI-1 just completed a barrel roll. Current altitude 2,000 feet. Rockport 2 confirmed he did a barrel roll. Affirmed he cleared the surface of the water by approximately 10 feet.
And then right after the barrel roll, we hear this over air traffic control.
All right, Rich, this is Captain Bill. Congratulations, you did that. Now let's try to land that airplane safely and not hurt anybody on the ground.
All right. Damn it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to. I was kind of hoping that was going to be it, you know?
That also, the despair and the anguish that you hear there, that really, really hurts to hear.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy to me. I'm sorry, I've been swearing. I don't even know if you guys.
We
do that
swear
on the
all the
show.
time.
We swear as much as you want, baby.
Explicit. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy to me, just like how he's still he still keeps like you hear that this entire time that he's like this kind of goofy guy, quiet but goofy guy. He has a sense of humor. Like he's trying to fucking kill him, smashes the plane, doing a barrel roll into the fucking Puget Sound, but he's still laughing about it. It's like, this makes me think, because I'm kind of like that too. I have kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, sardonic sense of humor or something. If I was doing this, would I still be cracking jokes up to the very end? I just can't imagine what that feels like to still be having a sense of humor about this when you're dealing with this confluence of horrible feelings of letting your family down and wanting to die and hurting all these strangers even, and you're still able to just kind of laugh it off. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about. I don't have a cogent point there.
I think there are a lot of points we have today that are not really cogent points.
It's just feelings. Like that's the thing is listening to this just digs up some real strong emotion in the same way that he was clearly out of control of his faculties and emotions at this point and operating purely on adrenaline and impulse. And, 3 minutes after doing that barrel roll, the plane crashes into Ketron Island, which is just a small, mostly uninhabited island.
Like 20 people live on it.
Yeah, it's tiny.
It's there's no way to know for sure, but I would imagine, because there are other islands he could have tried to land it on, but those have like structures you could see visibly. I would imagine he probably just thought that this was completely uninhabited, and that's why he took it down there.
I think so. One of his engines at this point was already giving out, probably because of the barrel roll. That crashed in the forest and immediately died. And that was the flight of Beebo Russell. It's strange. It's just so strange in and of itself, right? Just the experience of going back, listening to it again, the way that people contemporaneously were also listening in and I think cheering for this guy to be able to finally pull it out and land the fucking plane, right? Yeah,
they didn't realize what the goal was. Right. And this was, I don't know, this was a moment built for Web 2. Yeah. Such as it was like, here's social media, here's this, you can upload video at any time. So people are uploading things as they happen. They're getting compiled. They're getting threaded. Everyone is seeing all the different fragments of it. And it's almost like you're kind of experiencing the same fragmentation that's happening in his mind as he's in the plane and going this way and going that way. And like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do this. I hoped that would be the end. I still have to do it myself. And there's something about like, there's a mystery to it, especially before the feed came out and you're just watching video. You're just getting like, it's a baggage handler. Here's his name. Here's what's going on. While also seeing the panic of some people on the ground or other people just going like, holy shit, I can't believe that he did. There's footage of basically the whole flight, at least once he got back around the volcano.
Well, he was so low, you couldn't miss it. It was right there. And
I mean, the video footage of him doing the barrel roll is pristine,
So the family puts out a statement, and I'll just quote it here. He was a faithful husband, a loving son, and a good friend. A childhood friend remarked that Beebo was loved by everyone because he was kind and gentle to each person he met. This is a complete shock to us. We are devastated by these events, and Jesus is truly the only one holding this family together right now. So that's it for the story itself, but part of the reason we're talking about this on the show is that the story ends up being so much more than the story itself. So when we get back in the second half, we're going to talk about the way that all corners of the internet reacted to this and how it became something so much stranger. Hey everybody, Josh here. Editing Josh, I should say. So basically this week, AJ obviously was out, and I also ended up picking up the edit. And so I don't really have the time or the energy to also write and record a new interstitial. So what I am going to do is I'm going to read a selection here of something that I dug up. You can hear me turning the pages, right? This is something I wrote, I think in 4th grade, maybe. I'm not actually sure how old this is. but this is a story called The Hidden Enemy. I'm just going to read this until I don't feel like reading it anymore, and I hope you enjoy. Ring! I jumped out of bed with a start. I looked at my alarm clock. It was 6:40. Slowly, I put on my shirt and headed to the cafeteria. I was the first one there. My friend Jack was behind the counter. Wait a minute. If you were the first one there, then how could Jack be behind the... Whatever. Hey, Josh, he called out. Yeah, I replied. What'd you like today? I ordered a basic breakfast consisting of eggs and toast. By the way, also, I struck out here. I ordered a waffle smothered in syrup, so I guess I was wanting to portray a healthier breakfast. Until other agents came into the cafeteria, I talked to Jack a little, and then I headed to the chief's office. The chief was talking on the phone. He turned to me and held up his pointer finger, signaling he would be with me in a moment. He finally hung up the phone. Hi, Agent 3310, he welcomed. Here's your mission. Next, he pulled down a map of the galaxy. We are very worried because scouts have confirmed that aliens are constructing a secret nuclear bomb somewhere in here, he confided, pointing to the Delax system. You will be sent to this area with agents 7801 and 4293, he continued. Yes, I thought, that's Jack and Max, my best friends. Here's what you must do, Chief instructed. The bomb is capable of blowing up the entire planet Earth. You must deactivate and destroy the bomb. Now, head out. Walking toward the main hangar, I heard a wait up behind me. I stopped walking and Max ran up to me. So, this is pretty cool that you, me, and Jack are all on the same mission, huh? He gusted. He gusted? No, he asked. Sorry. Yes, and we must be good, because Chief said that this was the toughest mission, I commented. If we can successfully complete this mission, I'll get promoted, Max bragged. Wow, that's great, I exclaimed. We were so engaged in talking, we nearly missed our ships. Ships of the SPA, Space Protection Agency, aren't much compared to a U.S. space shuttle. The body is constructed of heavy-duty fiberglass and shaped sort of like an egg, only the front gradually slopes down. The sides converge, and everything meets at the tip. There are oval-shaped boosters on either side and a gigantic NASA-style rocket on the aft. The rockets are about the height of the ship itself. Pretty big, huh? At the fore of the ship, there is a 180-degree rotating laser cannon powerful enough to destroy a house. There are no wings because the boosters balance the ship. To our surprise, Jack was already at his ship. You guys were so busy talking, I passed you right by, he laughed. Soon, we were in our cockpit and taking off. First, Max took off, then Jack, then me. We were blasting through space when Max yelled into his radio, I'm detecting alien fighters! Put your ships into combat mode, fast! Each alien fighter was shaped like a triangle with a bubble cockpit in the center. There was a gun on each corner. Jack fired the first laser. The skin of the ship deflected the blast. Set your guns on rapid fire mode, I screamed into my radio. In 2 seconds, the battle turned into a flurry of lasers. I narrowly dodged and ducked shots, pulling my trigger all the while. I took a barrel roll, deflecting 5 shots and destroying 2 ships with the deflected shots. Suddenly, there was a wham! I looked at my controls. All the meters were dropping rapidly. Jack! Max! I yelled into my radio. They ducked out of the battle and rushed to help me. I wrestled with the controls, but to no avail. Suddenly, a whoosh! I glanced at the meters. Amazingly, I was regaining control of the ship. I flashed the thumbs up sign to Jack and Max, who did it right back. Never really knew why I regained control, but my best guess is that while I was diving, my backup generator and stabilizers kicked in. I knew, however, that I was running out of power, so I would have to stop sometime soon. What will happen next in The Hidden Enemy? Tune in some other time, maybe. I don't know. What? So it doesn't take long, unsurprisingly, for people to try to figure out what the fuck was going on. This is a weird situation.
As someone who was following this whole thing on various corners of the internet, what I remember, and my memory is somewhat faulty here, but I remember being on Reddit, and people on Reddit had found that little website that he made for his communications class that we took that interview from. He had also posted an unlisted video, but of course it's linked in that blog that he made, about himself and about his job, which is how people got to know like his nickname, got to know a little bit of his personality. But the big thing was that in finding that video, they found his YouTube channel.
Right.
Back then, you could see someone's liked videos, you could see the playlists that they made, and you could also see every channel that they follow. A lot of the channels that he followed were like Vice News or Fail Army.
I hate it when the Army fails. Just kidding. I love it.
It's not about Army fails, Josh. You don't know what Fail Army is,
I have
Josh?
no idea. Is that like the chive?
God.
Is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. It is 100% pure, distilled, uncut normie internet.
Got it.
It
Great.
is people falling over and cars crashing and stuff.
Well, to the point of the normie internet, I should say, before we dig into like the really brainwormed people who dug into his entire shit, I think we should just briefly talk about like simple reactions that people had, just like ordinary people. Yeah. One thing that happened was that Joel Monteith, who was a SkyWest Airlines pilot who actually flew out of SeaTac, he immediately recognized Beebo Russell from the news coverage, and he called an emergency dispatcher.
This guy was in my cockpit, on at least one occasion, asking questions, wanting to watch me do my flows, which is a pre-flight preparation I do before takeoff. And on another occasion, I actually confronted him in another unoccupied airplane with another guy in the cockpit with him, and they were looked like they were pointing and flipping maybe switches and whatnot in the airplane, and I went over and confronted them, and I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing in here?" And because this is a SkyWest owned airplane, but those are ground handled by Horizon Ground Services.
Okay.
And, so anyway, he said that at that time they were like, just talking about how to turn on the APU to so that they could tow the airplane. I thought it was unusual, and but I really didn't have a point to, I don't know what their procedures are or whatever on that side, but they kind of made they kind of started to get up and then leave the airplane, when I confronted them. So
sure,
okay. And that was kind of suspicious, and that was about a year ago that happened. So I don't think that this thing with this guy is like a plot that this dude just came up with like overnight.
One thing that I love about that recording is the emergency operator being like, It's
a lot of trailing off. There's a lot of stuff that I would cut as an editor.
Yes.
But it kind of has to stay.
For the sake of journalistic integrity.
What a narc, by the way. Guy can't have hobbies.
Yeah.
Kind of guy flipping some switches. What's the problem?
But yeah, I mean, this then further feeds into this thing of like, well, who the fuck was this guy? Like, did he just really want to be a pilot or something? And I also was able to dig into some contemporary reactions from Twitter. We've got some good tweets here. Brian, how about you read this first one?
Okay. Yeah, this is from Bumgdti. At Dr. Bumgdti. Some dude stole a plane from #SeaTac, parentheses, allegedly, did a loop-the-loop, almost crashed into #Chambers Bay, then crossed in front of our party, chased by fighter jets, and subsequently crashed. Weird times.
This is by Kyle Parks at Kyle Parks 77. He says, so a guy stole this plane at #SeaTac Airport, took off without clearance, did acrobatic maneuvers, got chased by F-15s, and then crashed. How was your Friday night?
How was your Friday night?
Yeah,
so
dude,
that just happened.
That's fucking lame. I did a thing. Like, come on, dude. This is just reading some of these is crazy because like what I remember from that night was kind of the same energy. Do you remember when the boat got stuck and everyone was like fucking going ham?
Yeah, the Ever Given in the Suez Canal. Yeah,
that's kind of like what me and my friends were on. You know what I mean? We were fucking dudes were rocking that night.
We got Base Kids on the Beat emoji of a goat, and this is at Base Kids 4L. Somebody deadass stole a plane from SeaTac Airport, LOL! 2 crying emoji. That's not funny, but damn! 3 crying emoji. Cry laughing emoji, I should specify. And then this is an extraordinary back and forth here between at boa constructor _ and at yo it's Maxim. Some fool just stole a goddamn real ass commercial airplane 10 minutes down the street from my house. LMAO. 2018 Seattle, truly off that shit.
My friend was supposed to be on that plane, and she is livid right now, lol.
Please send my thoughts and prayers. Allow me to revise this. Bummer for the homie, but this was sad and not funny.
Apology, thoughts, THOTS, and prayers all accepted. Miss you, heart. Also, your friend was not supposed to be on that flight. That was not a plane that was sent to fly.
That's a lie. That's
liar.
It wasn't a flight. It was a parked plane off in the corner that had finished for the day.
Unbelievable.
That's the feeling, because no one knows who this guy is at that point. And yeah, to go back to the thing, because I jumped ahead. That is my B. It is very sad and not funny. Was that as the Redditors are trying to piece together this guy's life and basically all the information that we have about him, aside from what the FBI releases in 2022, basically everything that we got was stuff that people got like that first night.
Right.
They get the video, they see, he's just as every man as he appears to be. His YouTube follows include Fail Army, etc. Some of his likes included like a couple Ben Shapiro owns a college student videos. Some of his follows included PragerU. I don't know if you know who Awaken with JP is.
Is that Jordan Peterson?
No. Oh. It's this guy who used to be really big on Facebook like 13 years ago. He's got like red hair and a beard, and he usually wears like a headband, and he does little comedy videos where he makes fun of vegans. Back in 2018, I think he was still on just kind of the lifestyle advice and like vegans if you ask them not to have a pet cat or whatever. So this definitely leans right. It should also be noted, him talking about video games earlier, he does not have any video game channels as part of his follows.
Fake gamer.
Yeah,
that's right. Got him.
But like, someone's YouTube traffic can be kind of unrelated to their follows and likes.
I worry about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if I died and people look through like what I have going on, they could draw some pretty uncool conclusions about my life. You know what I mean?
But I mean, generally, the reason why the right-wing YouTubers are where they are is because they reach a lot of normies, right? Ben Shapiro's big on Facebook.
Yeah.
Shit just ends up in your feed. And maybe what is clipped is like, yeah, I kind of get that.
Especially like mid 2010s when this probably was. You know what I mean?
I don't doubt that he was somewhat right wing. He was an evangelical Christian.
Oh, for sure.
From Wasilla, Alaska.
Yeah. But he doesn't seem to have been a super online guy. They found his Pinterest, which is still up, Beebo, which has his like dank meme file. And there's like 6 pictures, that are just like old demotivational posters and things like that. Like he's pretty normie. He probably has some political views that I certainly would disagree with, but he does not strike me as like a super melted, like based online right-wing culture warrior guy.
Not at all. If you're a conservative in Washington State, there's like 2 ways to do it. It's like this, where you're like, I don't know, man, like I want lower taxes and the fucking gay people with blue hair scare me a little bit, but I think they shouldn't be sent to camps. And then there's I am Adolf Hitler, Trump flags everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I hate Seattle. Seattle is dying, and so on and so on.
Yeah. And, this, in terms of the videos on his own channel, or the video on his own channel, I did go ahead and clip that just so you can kind of get a sense of the image of himself that he was trying to put forward in this communications class.
Hi, I'm Beebo Russell, and I'm a ground service agent. That means I lift a lot of bags. Like, a lot of bags. So many
There's
bags.
just the conveyor belt of bags.
Right. Look at all them bags.
Look at all them bags.
Ooh, the purple one. I usually have to work outside in this.
And it shows rain.
Yeah.
But it allows me to do some pretty cool things too.
And this is him traveling around all over the world.
Most importantly, I get to visit those I love most. It evens out in the end.
And I cut that down a little bit. But yeah, you've got some images of him. You know, he's there's a video of him riding in the back of a Cessna over some fjords in Alaska, skiing at Schweitzer Mountain in Idaho. There's one where he's standing in front of Chichen Itza in Yucatan. And, of course, watching a hurling... I don't know why I said, of course. Like everybody does, watching a hurling match in Dublin, Ireland. Yeah, just like a super normal guy, at least as far as we can tell based on this stuff. But something happened here. Something happened with these online people who just really started to dig into everything and started sort of applying their own worldview, ideology, and I guess way of life onto him.
He's a relatable person. He said the white guy thing. He liked some Ben Shapiro videos. So even in this very first day, certain internet people are saying this guy is a fellow traveler. He is a martyr for our cause, and he has been consumed by the libshit clown world. Remember Clown World? That's what everyone was on about at this point in time. All honk memes oh my God.
So Caleb, were you following any of this like reactionary shit yet? Or was this something that you found out about later on?
Yeah, so like the poll stuff and the 4chan white nationalist thing, I didn't find out until a little bit later. I can't remember what the subreddit was called. It was like the first QAnon. It was like the oncoming storm or something. The
storm is coming, maybe something like that. Yeah,
something storm related because that's what it was. Maybe it was just the storm, but it got deleted like before eventually they all did because it was fucking psychotic. But it was like when QAnon was in the very early stages. I was fascinated by that and I was watching their threads, and this is like what kind of like in a weird way glued me to this story was like fighting with these idiots.
Oh, sure.
You know, like they had all these theories like he was one of theirs. He's a based operator. He's Q-pilled. Q sent him. They had all their schizophrenic fucking posts that proved that he was one of theirs. And one of the theories that they had was that he'd crashed his plane into a pedophile island, and he did this on purpose or whatever. Now, the problem with this is there is a jail on an island near there.
Not this island.
Not this island is the big problem. The second problem is that it actually the jail had closed down like 7 years before.
Well, that's what they want you to think.
There is actually, believe it or not, a community of like I guess you call it civil confinement center. And these people are there, a mixture of orders by the state, but a lot of them choose to live on this island where people of various kinds of sexual crime, not necessarily pedophiles, but people who have, committed some crime or another can stay there and receive treatment. And there's the article that I'd sent you, Josh, was basically like the people that do these things have like a recidivism rate of like less than 5%. It was just an article about how that worked. And I don't even know if that was still going on at this point, but
but also different island.
Different island completely. Close by, but not the same island.
There's quite a few islands around there.
Owing to being
Island.
a sound. So I also, you sent me links, Caleb, to a couple of threads that were on 4chan's poll board. For those not familiar, poll, P-O-L, just the asshole of Satan's internet.
It's a bunch of people who are very smart and have the right opinions on politics.
So let's just go ahead and read some of these posts
about not.
It's time to read some posts about what people were saying at this time.
Some of us are born adventurers into a world with nothing left. We are here wasting away instead of living. He lived the moment, he took off till the end, rebelling against our shit world.
This hits me way too hard. As a kid, I always wanted to be a pilot, but you just let that number one dream float away and it feels more and more distant. This dude probably had the dream to fly real close to him and ended up working near planes because he figured maybe that was good enough. But it just imprints the dream deeper in the creeping unrealization that you're not in it. This guy didn't snap. He had a moment of clarity.
Why do you say unrealization when he clearly just meant realization?
I don't know.
We created Richard Russell. Just like with Bane posting, creating that crash with all the embedded references.
What the fuck is Bane posting?
Just like, what is he talking about?
I have no idea. Whatever.
Just like with Keck being awakened by the unending repetition of his name, this incident was another instance of memes breaking through into reality. The constant threads on Paul, monitoring military frequencies for, quote, Sky King callouts, our collective anticipation of apocalyptic war, all our thrills and anxieties attached to the future. They found a vessel in Rich. He's a man who saw the face of the world, all pretense stripped away, and he decided to shine like the biggest goddamn diamond that ever was. In this world, his plane crashed and burned. But in the next life, Rich is cruising level into the eternal dawn. He is waiting for us there, an angel in the Bombardier Q400. Fly forth, Sky King.
What a fucking loser, dude. Oh my God. Yeah. Before I thought that killing people was the way to escape. Be the anti-hero, take the Travis pill, and make everyone suffer like you. Then this dude came along. He didn't kill anyone. He went out of his way to avoid harming anybody. He just went on a joyride in a commercial airliner and did some rolls before committing suicide. He is the true hero. I generally have a better outlook on life now that this happened. I don't need to be the anti-hero to be free of my struggle. So, Richard Russell did prevent one school shooting.
Yes.
It sounds like.
I mean, but I want to talk about this real quick because after this we're going to look at some of the really rancid examples of posts and so forth brought about by this incident. But you can see here the underlying ideology to a lot of it, right? It's the online radical right. It's this culture of like self-victimization where they're such tremendous fucking losers, but they also don't have the courage to actually live freely in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
And so all they have is just resentment. And they channel that resentment either outward or inward. But either way, it's just this fucking perpetual state of aggrievement.
Yeah.
So like, what's that all about?
They haven't left the house. I mean, it's like, or they haven't in the ways that they've left the house, they haven't built real relationships with people. And it's just so interesting to see 4chan go from just being shit and horrible and racist in these kind of ridiculous ways to being very ideological about it, to go from the old Ann hero memes to unironically calling a suicidal person a hero 10 years later, 12 years later.
Right. I was on 4chan, like especially B, like way back in the day when, generally speaking, the sort of tone and tenor of conversations was pretty much just like ridiculing anybody and everybody. Yeah. And then if somebody was too big of a fucking lolcow or whatever, you would tell them to go kill themselves. That was kind of the way things were. But you're right that at this point, it's so much more developed as an ideology. And Caleb, I know that you've tracked this a fair bit on Western Kabuki and have been doing so more aggressively over the past year or so. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, like the old 4chan. So I lurked. I didn't post very much, but I did hang out there from time to time. I guess I don't know how to say this without sounding fucking psychotic, but bear with me. There's like an egalitarian type of racism on the early 4chan where like you say the terrible thing, but it's not really like, it's just what we do, right? Everybody is gay. Everybody is whatever. I'm not going to say any slurs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, it kind of inherited quite a bit from Something Awful, which had a similar culture.
Yeah.
Yes, it was worse than Something Awful, but similar, right? You know what I mean? The transformation of 4chan over the years is something we actually have. We've done now probably 2 or 3 episodes on it on Western Kabuki that we probably don't need to get into here. But the through line, I think, is what you had said earlier, Brian, is like it's interesting to see how it went from an hero to the hero. I don't know. These people are, I think, kind of just paralyzed by the creation that they've made themselves, I suppose. You get so steeped into this identity, you kind of cut off a lot of options for yourself when this becomes who you are.
It's also so interesting to me that they see the, I guess, beauty in the final moments and the death, but they don't seem to find any sadness for it. Like they see this as like a cleansing, almost baptismal act, right? As opposed to a completely...
Yeah, it's because they're projecting their own suicide ideation on this without learning the lesson.
But for some reason, they can't even see what a tragedy this was.
Or like what we had talked about in the first part of this episode, that nagging suspicion that he did not make the right choice.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's because they didn't spend the time poring over this like the perverts that we are. Didn't listen to the whole thing, didn't catch that, but they got the wrong takeaway for sure.
And there's an interesting article also about this whole thing on Know Your Meme. A lot of the comments on that are also the people being like, he didn't go up there to die, he went up there to live. But there's one really good comment that I found here that I wanted to read by a guy named Master Payne, who says, I think it's interesting that people are honoring Russell and finding beauty in his actions. He hijacked a plane containing no other people, flew it around solely for his own pleasure, and cared more about that joy in flying than his own survival or the inconvenience caused to others. I imagine there's an inner desire to self-destruct present in people, especially those on 4chan and Poll, that causes them to identify with Russell and his quote-unquote peaceful hijacking of a plane, as bizarre of an oxymoron as that is. To them, it's an elegant way to go out, or rather, a more interesting way to kill oneself. I hope the people who feel this way can identify the beauty in life and get over their desire to end it.
Truly is the master of pain.
Yeah. I think there is something about, because, 4chan was, and Something Awful, and those forums were some of the first like big sites where someone would spend their entire day there.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. The computer was still a place you had to go to, but then you'd just go to that room and be there all day.
Going online was like an activity.
Yeah.
Right.
And then your mom would be like, come get spaghetti. And then you'd call her a cunt or whatever. No, I am not a 4chan user. I am projecting this on the both of you. And now the internet has become a thing that like everybody spends all their time on. Right. Even if you're pretty normie, if you're bored, you're retired, you're disabled, you can't work, or you're at a job that's just very boring and you can have your phone, like you're spending a lot of time looking at your feeds and what does the internet show you? What do people like to share with each other? What do the algorithms prioritize themselves on? And it's stuff that makes you upset. It shows you every bad thing. I mean, it's the same thing as like watching the news, but it's so much more magnified. You're finding all of these things. Give me a reason to be mad about something. Give me a reason to be sad about something at all times, which is becomes a very unnatural way of seeing the world. And this is where you see like purity tests that show up. People talk about this on the left, but it's every online community. Everybody has their own language. You need to hold on to that language and you need to have the right attitudes about every specific thing. And it becomes, and I'm speaking from experience here, it becomes paralyzing to you in regular conversations with people.
Because you don't know how to talk.
You don't know how to relate to people. You don't know how to sort of just accept normal differences. You don't know how to do any of that. And then your personal problems in communicating with people, in dealing with other people, those become your own resentments. And then you let that out online instead of actually letting it out. And these things become these very, very big cycles.
Caleb, I know that is something that you have seen so much of. I mean, at the very beginning, I talked about fucking grums, but like these Gamergate sickos who cannot wrap their heads around like the concept of a female character in a video game that they don't want to fuck. Like it melts their brains. They can't talk about anything else, right?
Consumption as identity is kind of how I put it. And it's such a dead end. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you're not, who you are isn't based on the things that you're actually doing or like, so there's a different kind of identity for somebody who is like a gamer or like a 4chan troll, because, that's just kind of like what you're consuming, you base your identity on versus, like there's no, let me put it this way. The TV watchers don't identify as like as a fucking political group or something, right? Like the way that gamers do, or the way that 4chan people do now, or whatever. And just when you do that in any case, whether it's movies or, I mean, cinephiles don't really do it in the same way that gamers do, but channers and gamers and stuff like that become these kind of rotten fucking people because there's just no substance to an identity of just the one that you haven't really earned or explored. It's just something you've gotten through osmosis by consumption.
Right. And by just sort of mirroring everything that you hear back outward again, because that's the other thing about this sort of, 4chan Poll rabbit hole is that the more you consume, the further down the hole you get.
Yeah.
And what we've been quoting so far has been, I think, pretty broad expressions of a nihilistic worldview. But once you start digging, well, it gets pretty overt pretty quickly.
Rich kid in flight school here. Sky King has balls of steel on a level that few before will be able to match. It's commonly thought to be suicide to attempt shit like he pulled off in a simple non-aerobatic single-engine twin like a Cessna 172 because of how unpredictable they get in these sorts of outside their flight envelope maneuvers, how their wing spars can't handle the loading. This is all one sentence. And how their engines/avionics systems aren't designed to work upside down.
He's a rich kid in flight school, not a writer.
Damn it, Jim.
He's a flyboy, not a poet.
This guy not only did that, but he did it in a fucking 40-passenger turbine twin the
72.
size the size
Asshole.
of 2 motor coaches that he started. He's in flight school, Josh. I think he'd know if it's a 40-seater.
So true.
That he started, taxied, took of in, and flew without killing himself. Well, all with zero previous experience in an airplane before pulling maneuvers in it that would make even the most seasoned test pilots shit themselves. He's going to go down as a fucking god, a glimpse of the eternal, unbreakable white spirit that is all but completely absent in modern aviation. F.
So
alarms are starting to go off.
Here we go, folks. We're really getting into the shit now. I guess, I don't know. Did I do a content advisory at the beginning about the extremely overt racism?
Yeah,
okay, because we're really going to be getting into it now. It's time to talk about the actual white supremacists who glommed onto this story. So I just want to frame this up first by saying that 2024 BLS statistics, Bureau of Labor Statistics, report that 88.3% of airline pilots identify as white. Only 4.4% identify as black. And I want to say that black people make up like 16% of the total U.S. population now. There's a lot of reasons for this. One of the big ones is historical precedent, dating back to the advent of the air travel industry itself, where nearly all of the pilots that were hired to fly these planes were coming straight out of the military after World War II, which had almost entirely excluded black people from training and service in the Army, Air Force, or flying planes for the Navy, for that matter.
That is correct.
So another reason is how expensive it is to learn to fly. Flight school, if you want to go and become a fully licensed professional commercial pilot, that's going to set you back over $100,000. And as it stands now, white people in the United States are more likely to have access to that kind of discretionary spending than black people. And over the past decade, both the industry and the government have tried to expand access for training because having such a limited available labor pool is not actually good for business.
No.
So, for instance, both United and American Airlines have opened their own training academies rather than relying on, the broader industry of flight academies. These generally, from what I've seen, have more like scholarship programs and stuff like that available because the airlines are happy to eat that cost if it means that they get qualified pilots coming out of it.
Sounds kind of woke to me, dude.
It's pretty woke. And also in the 2024 reauthorization of the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock authorized $240 million in federal funds to go out to training programs across the country to make them more affordable to everybody, which again is woke.
Yeah, what's happened to that money? They haven't gotten to it. They will, I'm sure.
No, there was in fact an executive order that was put out earlier this year that was blocking some sort of woke DEI spending for the FAA, which I think is this program. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Well, and being a pilot, I think there's also some weird stuff about the pay structure as you're starting out as a pilot. If anyone's been watching the new season of The Rehearsal, which is all about aviation safety, he spends his time with a young pilot who still lives with his parents. And also his parents have a lot of money.
This is going back to what I was talking about earlier, how generally speaking, to earn your wings and go and fly for one of the big boys, you have to start out at the regionals. And even though some of those regionals do have labor contracts and are union jobs, you're not making nearly as much money.
Yeah.
But white supremacists see it differently. They see a world that has been turned hostile against the white man, boxing him out of every available opportunity in favor of undeserving minorities. And of course, for these people, Richard Russell was more than just an inspiration. He was a hero for the white race. And one of the articles that you sent me along, Caleb, was this one, August 2018, from Australia's Saturday paper. In self-imposed exile in the unrecognized Eastern European microstate of Transnistria, a sliver of land in eastern Moldova, someone named Weave is lonely, anxious, and medicated. The stress of exile is amplified by the burden of serving as webmaster for the world's largest neo-Nazi website, The Daily Stormer. Every day, 24 hours a day, I am on call, he wrote this week. I serve so many sites with billions of page views in so many different languages, and right now, the amount of stuff I have on my plate has me beyond my limit. There has not been a single day in years that I've stepped away from a computer for a 24-hour period, even though every day I want to turn this motherfucker off and go out into the wilderness to kill animals from tools I've fashioned myself. White men weren't meant to live like I do.
Weave is the online tag for Andrew Auernheimer, a 32-year-old hacker, fugitive, white supremacist, defensive bearer of Jewish heritage, and troll of notorious and astonishing repugnance. He's a man profoundly moved by the antics of Sky King. Entombed in a dank room far from home, it's modernity that troubles him.
Auernheimer served time in 2013 and 14 for identity theft before being released on a legal technicality. He emerged from prison with a large, ornate swastika inked onto his chest. He is due in a U.S. court early next year for his part in the brutal harassment of a Jewish woman. One reason he's been shuttling between countries that have no extradition treaties with the U.S. Auernheimer is alleged to have left on the woman's voicemail the words, "You fucking, I'm not going to say the slur, whore. This is Trump's America now." She received multiple calls that were simply the sound of gunshots. Auernheimer helped organize the Unite the Right rallies held in America last year, which culminated in the killing of young anti-racism protester Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, Virginia. Via online chat forums, Auernheimer organized his fascist comrades to harass mourners at her funeral. He is a particularly modern neo-Nazi, employing computer code to help white insurgency, that's in quotes, and publishing video sermons as the self-anointed, quote, I prophet, a sort of neo-Nazi Jesus Christ.
That's I prophet like iMac or iPhone, by the way.
Yeah, he's making a branding joke that's about 5 years too late.
Entombed in a dank room far from home, it's modernity that troubles Auernheimer. He doesn't bind. His particularly modern commitment to white liberation has enslaved him. Those computer cables now snake around his throat, constricting his will to a purer life. It's a cruel irony. White men, quote, weren't meant to churn away at the same task day in, day out endlessly, end quote, he wrote this week. Quote, we were born to conquer. We live in a world that forces us into conditions that are unbearable. And Richard Russell, the Sky King, was explicitly aware this was the case for his own life, distinctly because he was white, end quote.
I'm going to say this as agnostically as possible, because obviously I don't agree with anything that he's saying, but like, what about anything? Oh, white men weren't born to do this task. We're born to conquer. What the fuck does that have to do with whiteness? Yeah. I really don't I just don't understand, even if you think that human beings weren't meant for kind of these menial tasks that capitalism has forced upon us. I just don't understand where race comes into this. The only thing the connection that I could see is what Richard Russell says, oh, I'm a white guy, I can't get the job or whatever. But it's such a stretch. Even the most cynical interpretation of what Beebo said does not translate to me for this at all.
Well, it's like that whole idea, that idea of conquering, where we have like an ethnic destiny to conquer, a racial destiny. That's not most of the people that were alive. At any period of conquest, there are always people just doing the grunt shit. Even people involved in the machinery of conquest. Even, like, have you never heard of army jobs before?
Yeah.
Like, have you never seen that, like, just about, everybody in Rome was actually a peasant? And, only the people who get the glory in the stories are part of a rarefied class of people. They are not, they're not you. You know, you are always statistically going to be more menial and more average.
But I think that's the whole trick of it, right?
Yeah.
Is that no, they are not you, but in this sort of myth making, they are you and you are them. Your failure in life is not a result of anything that you have done. It is a result of your unique greatness being held back by societal factors that did not exist back when your ancestors, I don't know, fucking went out in boats or whatever the fuck, right? Like, it's not your fault that you get no bitches. It's the Jews' fault, right?
Yeah. I have a racial claim to my ancestors who were Swedish dipshits who came and bought one of the worst plots of land in Missouri.
Right.
Yeah. The spirit of conquest. That all that means is that I just need to be Lutheran and think that photographs are evil.
And I think that this creates an animating drive where you might otherwise lack one. And the nice thing about this animating drive is that it doesn't have to animate you to anything in particular. You can do fucking nothing but play video games and then go online and post about how woke is taking tits out of fucking World of Warcraft or whatever. And that's actually not just okay, that's good, because were it not for your station, your reduced station in life, of course you'd be going out and doing bigger and better things than this, but you can't, right? That you have been reduced. Your inability to do all of these things is not your inability. It is society preventing you from achieving the inherent greatness that you deserve.
Yeah, I just think it's very funny that they're meant to conquer, but they are being held down by a bunch of people that all have IBS and are allergic to everything.
Yeah, I'm meant to conquer, and yet going outside of the house scares me. This idea that, like, yeah, I'm fucking Hernan Cortez here, and yet I can't get over the basic obstacles of, like, whatever the banking establishment has decided to do to my video games. Okay, pick up the fucking sword then, but you can't, right? Because you always need the automatic weapon instead, and you just go to the fucking grocery store and kill random people.
I am shocked. I never knew that Weave is a Jew.
Yeah, many such cases, I'm
which is very
afraid.
funny.
Man, I hadn't heard that name in so fucking long. I guess he's still out there doing it, but he hasn't done much newsworthy lately.
But that's the other piece that's so interesting to me with guys like that, right? If you are a Jewish Nazi, and again, unfortunately, many such cases, you will never, you're never going to be accepted. You're never going to be accepted as one of them. You're always going to be on the outside looking in. You will never pass the purity test.
Yeah, you've gotten so divorced from the world as it actually exists that you've created this little, like, dollhouse for yourself where you can be the based Jewish Nazi who triggers the libs and the wokes and the blacks. And yet, if anything ever tipped in your favor, in your ideological favor, they would very quickly tip away from your favor in terms of material circumstances, because those Nazis will happily, they're not going to be like, yeah, you helped the cause by running Stormfront or Daily Stormer or whatever for 10, 20 years. They're just going to kill you for being a Jewish guy.
Right.
It's the Jewish version of that, the Indian guy who was like,
I'm Indian Hitler.
I am Indian. Yeah, I'm Indian Hitler. Like, come on, man.
So an August 10 article that you also sent me, Caleb. Thank you for sending me all of these great articles. We've got
lots of reading. Sorry about that.
We've got one here by a guy named Richard Hauk, and he wrote this for a white supremacist website called Countercurrents.
God.
And what makes this one really fun is that he recorded himself reading it, so we get to roll that beautiful footage.
They made it accessible because they're woke. Okay.
That's right.
Perhaps Rich did want to be a pilot, and on August 10th decided he was going to live out one last dream before flying into the sunset. For some reason, he felt this was no country for white men.
Oh my God.
Maybe it was the FAA rules that operate under the premise that the aviation profession is too white.
It says white.
It is
oh my God.
He what?
His feelings were due to major airlines proclaiming they want to train pilots with more diverse backgrounds. It could have been watching his city, his town, his work, his local grocery store, and every aspect of his life becoming increasingly enriched with aliens. Whatever it was, Rich was keenly aware of the current racial dynamic at play in the U.S., and it was most certainly a source of discontent. Man, the sights went by so fast. I was thinking, like, I'm going to have this moment of serenity, taking all the sights. There's a lot of pretty stuff, but they're pretty in a different context. Hey, I want the coordinates of that orca with, the mama orca with the baby. I want to go see that guy. Some of the last words ever spoken by a man who had his homeland and his future stolen from him. Rich was sick and tired of living in this postmodern, multicultural, materialistic hellscape, and he did something.
This is what I call the INTJ voice. It's a guy who really, he's never performed before, but he thinks he has this spirit of an orator in him. And so he reads everything like this. And it's there, he doesn't get his consonants out. No. It's all he's got this sort of smarm running through it. There is no technique whatsoever.
Soy right.
Soy right for sure.
Yeah, someone who could sound better even just talking straight.
It's like if Nazis had their own NPR. You know what I mean?
And I think the thing about it too is the writing is so turgid, his delivery somehow makes it even worse.
Yeah, he doesn't even
no country for white men. Fuck off.
He thought it was maybe no country for white men.
Yeah, he doesn't even know how to deliver the really big, ridiculous operatic beats that he's written in here.
Idiot, moron.
Yeah, this is. What happened here?
Yeah, what is going on here?
This was not a fuck you. I mean, there was never any point where he says fuck you.
No.
Right? This was like, I just want to feel better and I have no idea how. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this really crazy thing that maybe he had kind of, fucking joked around with people about before.
How do you even quote what he said? This isn't a case where the dipshits on poll didn't listen. Yeah. You're quoting him saying I thought I'd have this moment of serenity, and he didn't. Yeah. He did not have that. So why I don't know. There's no excuse to get that incorrectly.
And I can't tell. I mean, and this is not even a useful thing to discuss or ask, but do you think that they know how incorrect this interpretation is?
No.
Or
no, I don't.
No, okay.
I don't.
If they heard us talking about it, if one of those Nazis tunes in today and listens to this episode, they will just think that we are responding this way because we are triggered.
Right.
That's it. They're going to think that we're simply upset about what they said instead of, more than that, just confused. Right? Yeah. You are so far off base that none of this shit even makes any sense anymore. You have created a dollhouse for yourself that you occupy alone, thinking that you're occupying it with other people, but they all have their own little dollhouses and you all just yell out the window at each other.
Right.
Meanwhile, there is a full-size world right outside your door that you no longer have any perspective on whatsoever.
It's just crazy. Beebo told you why he did it.
Right.
He told you how he felt while he was doing it, which wasn't the conclusion that you came to. And I don't know. It's you're 80% of the way there. At no point does Beebo go in any sort of rant against multiculturalism. Give me a fucking break.
But that's what's so weird too, right? The only thing that they really can grab onto is his I don't know, I'm just a white guy. But you don't. This was such
by the way, you don't even have the full context of that because remember, it cuts in when he's saying that.
That's
so
true.
You don't know.
Somebody ended up coming on the channel and talked over him, so you didn't end up hearing the rest of what it was that he was going to say.
She was probably a brown woman
who's been promoted because of woke. But the thing is, too, it's not as if every time something comes along, all of these Pepes seize on it in the way they did with this story. There are still people posting about this shit. They have really latched onto this man as their martyr. Why this story specifically? Yeah. I can't figure it out.
I think, like I'd said in the first part of this episode, it relates to me a lot. I mean, part of that, frankly, is just how close it happened to me and my, regional connection to it and everything. But a lot of the fascists do have the correct criticisms of liberalism, and they're right up until the prescriptive stage, which is kill Jews. That's what we should do. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They understand, like, some of the stuff that this countercurrents idiot was talking about is like 80% there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everything, this all sucks. This is why, what made him snap. So I think that this is like, they feel some kinship to it. I feel some kinship to it because I'm also kind of a fucked up guy who, my life didn't go the way that I thought it was going to. And, I mean, it's a relatable story. It's just dangerous to come to the conclusions without really doing some introspection on it. And I think that I have earned the right to say that because this has been something that's been bothering me for 7 years. I've thought about this guy a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, and there is something about it that grabs you uniquely too. I mean, we were all going through it in the first half, listening to those clips again. It's really something.
Yeah. I mean, I've been really fucked up putting this, like just working on this at all. I mean, it's talking about suicide. I'm not in the best place in my life currently. And just that feeling of it is so overwhelming, right? It's a contagious feeling. We don't really know why, but like one person killing themselves can inspire another person to kill themselves, right? Especially among young people
and in families.
And what you do find from the right these days is that they've become a lot more religiously focused as well. They've become, in 2018, you still had this idea of an alt-right. You had people who were like, we're not religious. There's like gay people like Milo Yiannopoulos. There's atheists. This is all these people who were radicalized in online spaces that thought that, Jesus was a faggot and, decided that there were like different ways to become a Nazi. And one thing that people do know about Beebo Russell was that he was very religious. One of his coworkers, talked about all those books that he read. An interview with someone else said he reads Ravi Zacharias, who was an apologist and was always kind of writing books that's like Jesus in a debate with Buddha, that kind of stuff.
Who would win? Epic rap battles of history.
Yeah.
Jesus versus Buddha.
And he was certainly a culture warrior as well. He was, and then right after he died, it turns out he was a monstrous sexual offender. No relation to, of course, what Richard Russell was doing. He didn't know that at the time.
Right.
But, this was a guy who, what I see from the vague online footprint that he has, is someone who is trying to improve himself. There's a lot of self-help stuff. There's a lot of religious stuff. You're not just sanctified through faith alone, and then upon death, right, that's when you enter the perfection of heaven and God's kingdom, but that it can actually happen on earth, and that physical and mental healing can happen through Jesus. And we've talked about this before, if you're struggling with mental illness and you are becoming more involved in the church and more involved in the church, and your mental illness is not improving, then that compounds it. You feel like a failure. You feel like you're not faithful enough, like you're not doing enough for God and for your church and for your community. And I can imagine how that struggle and how that compounding feeling affects him. But because of his religiosity, his religious connections, that becomes more of a thing for the 4chan guys now, who are all Christ fags,
right?
Who are all like, Christ is king, right? It's all in the bio. They put the emoji on there, trad wives, all that stuff.
Right.
And it's become fetishistic in a way that it wasn't in the 80s. This guy is not just a hero of the white race. He had it all right. He was a Christian. He's a Christian martyr.
Hero of the white Christian. Yep. Yeah.
So he somehow, even though his story has not changed, the metastasis of the far right has allowed itself to let in more aspects of this person, or of the fragments of this person that exist online.
There's and I'm probably botching the pronunciation because I've never heard it spoken, but there's a philosopher that I like. He's a Romanian guy, Emil Cioran, I think is how you pronounce it, who talks about suicide a lot. And Cioran's idea is that suicide isn't worth doing because you've already done the suffering, right?
Yeah.
Beebo did the suffering. He was there. And at his last moments, he realizes the fruitlessness of the action of killing himself. You see him having that thought. So I just think that's one of those things that when we talk about this kind of thing, we should probably impress upon people that, like, the suffering is already been doing. And I think that maybe is just kind of why he's been mythologized by these people. Maybe they are they have the same, I guess you said, religiosity or something. Maybe they don't. I think a lot of the kind of chanters and stuff are LARPing with that anyway.
Yeah.
They're not really committed to the theology or apologetics,
or
like
the
Beebo
gospel
was or anything like that. But I just think it's important for anybody who's listening to this, if you're at that point, the suffering is done. This is kind of proof of like what's the adage of like suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I mean, but that's kind of true. Like the suffering has already been done, and I just don't think that it's necessary to really mythologize or glamorize what he ended up doing.
A little earlier in the episode, I mentioned like, everything that happened with my sister and all that. And to sort of rationalize that for a while, rationalize that sudden dramatic loss. One of the things that I did was I think I just kind of, I think I just sort of, I don't know, fetishized my own suffering in a way. Like I just like, wow, this suffering, I'm just going through so much pain, and this is happening because God is singling me out, and I'm just a beast made to suffer, and that makes me strong, and that makes me powerful. And I'm going to keep suffering and have all of this pain. Oh, baby, and I think there's maybe that's like a defense mechanism in a way, because then it means that the suffering has a reason as opposed to just being what it is, which is pain, and pain that comes from something that I assume is an act that happened with some reasoning behind it. I don't know what it was. None of us do, and we never will. But that the suffering itself isn't good or valuable necessarily. It just is what it is. I've always been very upset with the idea that a lot of people bring to the table, which is that the reason that humans suffer and the reason that we have so much pain in our lives is that it's like a necessary condition to human flourishing. This is something that I still carry with me from my time in college when I took a philosophy class, right? And talking about the philosophy, like, why do people suffer? Well, it's the suffering that makes us human. Maybe that's true on some level. Everybody has some shit that they've gone through, but that doesn't mean that it's good to bring more suffering into the world just for the sake of people being able to experience that pain. And the other thing that I'll say about suicide is, like, obviously this story has given all of us a reason to come together and sort of talk about our own experiences with that shit. But if Beebo were still alive, bringing joy into his family's life, which I know he did, because I've heard what he sounded like. I've seen videos of just sort of what he was like, just generally. That joy for his people in his life would have been so much more impactful for those people than any of the stuff that has come about as a result of this.
One thing that's really striking is that there are these YouTube videos and, of course, the news article, not the news articles, but the news videos that are uploaded on YouTube as well. There's even a Facebook page started by some stranger that's like a "We love you, Beebo Sky King" kind of thing, very right wing. But like, people who knew him show up in those comment sections. People who knew him show up. I mean, actual relatives. I even found his mother in one of the places. Even like an employee of his at the bakery. They were all, it's amazing how much people just said that they loved having him around. I'm sure there are people that didn't like him, that had bad experiences with him, but it was amazing to see just that, as many comments as I have seen from people who worked with him or went to church with him or whatever, who have found these sort of odd places online to just say, I loved him, which is to say that they loved the man who was alive. He wasn't rational when he died. He wasn't committing a rational act.
And you can hear it in his voice.
Yeah. And that's something that is why it's so disturbing when you see it among the far right people, is they try to turn it into a rational thing. Like the suicide has meaning because it's intellectual, it's planned out, and it's something that you should do, is their position. When, and I mean, historically, we have stories like Lucretia or Tristan and Isolde, Romeo and Juliet, blah, 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 like famous suicides, even in the Bible, King Saul or whatever. But like, it's not a rational thing when people do it. And they don't necessarily do it because they truly, truly want to. Mm-hmm. It's because everything else has been overridden by this incredibly powerful mental impulse. I mean, so that's why I understand it when it happens.
Yeah.
And I understand it when I feel it myself, as I've had to deal with for basically the last 5 years now. But the intellectual part of me has to remind myself of the ways to get away from it and what it would cause and what it would lead to. And all of the good things that I can do for people that would then disappear. If that's helpful for anyone else, I hope it is. But to have people like create this cathedral of suicide that they worship at is so perverse and disgusting to me.
Yeah. So, as we've said, Beebo Russell becomes like an interesting memory for many Seattleites, a funny/tragic story for a few aviation enthusiasts, and a martyr for some of the absolute worst people to ever walk the face of the earth. And there are countless tribute videos that are sort of to him. And generally speaking, the format of these is it'll feature like clips from that air traffic control recording we listened to earlier. And it's set to music. I don't need to roll the clip for this one.
The one with the M83 in it.
Yeah.
That one pisses me off because I love M83.
Right.
The only one of these tributes that I thought was good was like the old man playing the Orca song. I think that's in the spreadsheet. That one was pretty good. That guy's nice. Years ago when I tried doing this for my old podcast, I reached out to him to ask if I could use that song, and he was really gracious. We had a nice conversation about that.
Even in the song itself, he doesn't seem to be like glorifying the death, right? It's just like this was kind of like that there is a strange beauty in the moment. And I think that is true,
Yeah.
Got here a meme from R. the Donald in 2020.
I'll never forget.
Or Patriots.win, I think it was, which was like the following to R. the Donald.
Yeah, when it got banned.
Right, it was the replacement to the Donald.
Friends, FRENS, after voting Trump, and it's two of the little crying autism frogs or whatever. And then there's a shot of the Sky King in his plane up in the corner.
Beautiful shot, by the way. But
from an amateur on their
beautiful shot.
phone, yeah.
Ruined by the baby autistic Nazi frogs.
Horrendous. Hate it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we've pretty well summed up kind of what this story has meant to a lot of different kinds of people. And before we sort of close out here, Caleb, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to come on our show, bring us this story, and really talk about all of the different angles of it. If folks want to check you out online, follow you around, whatever, what should they do? Where should they go?
First of all, I just want to say thanks for giving me an outlet to actually talk about this, because I just have really wanted to do this in some form or another for many years.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me. It was good. Little strange to dredge up some feelings. I didn't think it was going to get as heavy as it did. But yeah, it was a good time. If you want to follow me, you can do so in a couple different ways. I have a podcast called Western Kabuki. We just kind of talk about stuff on the internet. I have a cultural analysis NFL podcast called 60 Minute Drill with Ed Zitron of Better Offline and Arif Hassan, who is a very well-respected and credentialed NFL beat writer. That is coming back pretty soon as the season ramps up. And you can just find me at Bird Respecter on most platforms, although I'm mostly just on Blue Sky these days.
Go follow all of that. We've actually been, as I was saying before, Brian and I went on Western Kabuki jointly one time. Mm-hmm. I've also been on the show a couple other times. There will be links to all of that shit in the notes. And go follow Caleb.
Thank you.
So this is a largely forgotten story. It was 2018. Donald Trump was the president. Don't you remember?
What was that
and
like?
the news cycle had adapted to shifting very quickly, right? The country's largest mass shooting occurred about a year before and dropped out of the news within a week. So the 2018 news cycle with this story that only has one casualty very quickly moved on. The family's dedication to remaining silent has persisted to this day, admirably. Someone digs it up every now and then. They make a TikTok, they make a podcast, they make a video essay, and a lot of people are reminded of the event. It gets a lot of clicks, a lot of views, and a lot of people learn about it for the first time. And whatever it is that captivated us in the first place has not become any less captivating. The FBI released their findings with redactions in April of 2022, which didn't open up a whole lot of the mystery to us. Something about Richard is very relatable, and yet And maybe because of this, it's unspecific. On the tributes to Russell that you find online, in YouTube comments, and even a Facebook group started by that random woman I mentioned earlier, you'll find people who knew him. Church friends, teammates, even a former employee, all talking about how much they liked him. His friends and family have been scattering his ashes in all of the places around the world where he wished to travel. And yet, in death, his identity is remade by strangers, reading deep into every half-garbled radio quote, writing T-shirt slogans like, "They say he went up there to die, but he went up there to live."
No! God damn it!
Or, "For that hour, he was the freest man on earth." In his notebook that day, Richard wrote that, in the third person, he was the cure. But what did he cure? What was fixed by this? Who is saved by this? Our American culture, littered with fascists and easy access to tools of mass murder, has created loose networks of people who worship death, but only if it is spectacular. We are transfixed by Beebo's flight because it is big, and it's experienced by many, and a big thing must be meaningful. So in a movement that has arisen from a society that has stripped itself of so much meaning, and which has then in turn stripped all meaning that remains, that simply makes bigness into meaning itself. If you must die, you must be talked about. And if you are not talked about in life, like some conquistador, then a spectacular death can be your ticket to, not immortality, because I think everyone can see how short the news cycles are these days, but to your 15 minutes of fame. The brief moment of celebrity subsumes all, subsumes your relationships, your marriage, even the gospel itself in this case. But Beebo, in that moment of freedom that he deeply regretted, through tunnel vision and drying vomit on his chest, through fluttering breaths and rapidly shifting emotions, actually lost his freedom more deeply than he could have ever understood. His life and his death are now owned by thousands, millions of other people who never knew him and will never know him. He is trapped as a false god in an idol of the modern death cult. The spectacle is not freedom. The big thing is not the world's cure. All it is your final boarding pass to the worst of all possible worlds. I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.
I'm just looking for that orca out there swimming in the sea. Looking for a moment's peace. I can bring on home to me. Just a broken guy think I'll just roll this baby over. Let those feelings roll over me. Then I'll go nose down and call it a night. Won't you tell him I'm sorry? Just a broken guy with a few screws loose, but I ain't so crazy. I can see